There we go. Okay, well, it is now officially afternoon because it's after 12. So good afternoon, everyone. Um, why? My name is Alon. I am an assistant professor of teaching at the School of Engineering, and I host the Germinator every 2 weeks, virtually and in person. So last few times I had people in the room with me. This time it's a bit lonely, but you're all here virtually, which is great. Before I pass on for today's, pass the stage to our guest for today, I want to first recognize that we are all meeting here, some of us in person physically and some of us virtually on the traditional land of the Okanagan Nation, which is their traditional unceded and ancestral territory. And all these three words mean different things, and it's worth remembering that. That is traditional, meaning it has been passed on with the traditions on the land, living through generations. It's ancestral, meaning it has always been such land for the Seal Okanagan. And of course, it is unceded, meaning that the Seal Nation has never ceded, has never forfeited, has never given away the land to anybody. And for those of you who are on this journey of learning, as myself, as an uninvited guest to this territory, some of the worldviews of Indigenous nations, with the Seal Nation included, land ownership is not really something that's compatible with Indigenous worldviews. Land stewardship and taking responsibility for the land is definitely there, but one does not own the land, therefore one cannot pass ownership. So when we say unceded, it's not as much as passing ownership, but it's never, the responsibility for the land has never been given away to others. And so I really invite you to kind of think about, when we acknowledge the land, what it means, and what do the words mean, and they would mean different things to different people. So I hope that was somewhat insightful and informative for some of you. And now for today, I'm grateful for ETSI which is the Economic Trust for Southern Interior, to gracefully give us financial support to bring people such as Sandra to come as guest speaker, as well as many others in previous weeks and in future weeks. And so just a quick synopsis on Sandra. Sandra joined UBCO not that long ago. I consider myself as a new member of UBCO because I've been here for 2 years, and it's amazing how many more people came after I joined, and had the pleasure of meeting Sandra along her process of coming here. She has absolutely wealth of knowledge and experience with entrepreneurship. She worked in so many places, supported so many startups and communities and student entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs. And so I'm really grateful to have her spend some time with us today. And full disclosure, I came to support Sandra on her recent activity this past weekend. So we can also include that in our chat about supporting innovation, creating innovation, supporting entrepreneurs, creating entrepreneurs. So with that, let me first stop the share and remove the spotlight to Sandra. And I guess with that, Sandra, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm zooming in actually from the UBCO innovation space downtown. So we have a bit of a workspace at the Innovation Center shared with the same area as Accelerate Okanagan. And yeah, so I couldn't make it back to campus, but happy to be here virtually and hopefully maybe see some more students in this space as well. I do encourage, as always, if any of you want to turn your video on, I'm hoping to make this conversational. But maybe I can start, and I do have the chat open as well. So please do, start dropping in some questions or feedback. Depending where you're all joining in from, I know sometimes it's hard to be off mute and on video, but do feel free to. This is not meant for me to be talking at anybody for this session. So I'll share just a bit about what my role is at UBCO, and maybe see how I can, the role that I have and the programs that I support can support some of you along your entrepreneurship or innovation journey. So as the innovation manager, it's a pretty new role within UBC Okanagan, and part of that portfolio is entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurship outside, of course, the classroom and the academic environment. So our programming is entrepreneurship at UBC Okanagan. You may be familiar with that program, hopefully, or you've heard of some of the activities we've done. So that is really intended to support students, faculty, researchers, staff, alumni. So even, once you leave your academic journey at UBCO, you can come back, and we do want to be here to support you and, build community around you. And so the programming that we have is about, from early on ideation. So Alon mentioned we had our startup sprint program this past weekend. So it was kind of kick off Friday night, go through Sunday, and really meant to be kind of an intense sprint on entrepreneurship. So starting with an idea and going through to prototyping and pitching and doing some customer discovery. And that was really about the experience of entrepreneurship. We also do education. We have our e-discovery program, which just launched, and that is, kind of workshop based in the evening. We've got an online platform we're trialing out called Impact Toolbox that walks you through, if you have an idea, on where to even start. So that's always, I think, a lot of the hard part for maybe especially students, but really anybody kind of thinking about entrepreneurship is, where do you even start? How do you come up with an idea? And the methodology we really like to leverage is kind of the lean startup methodology around finding a problem to solve. And then how do you solve it? And, then, if you want to turn it into a business, it's who's the customer? So, you have to have a customer to have a business. A lot of research happens and a lot of other activities happen that may not become a business, and that's okay. And, our group is really kind of more focused on the stuff that could, or exploring how to make that happen. And so our e-discovery program is kind of really the first step. So again, I'm not seeing any videos on yet, but if any of you do have an idea or have maybe started something or exploring, please do feel free to add it into the chat and we can talk a bit about that. But yeah, that's really kind of what our e-discovery programming is, and honing in on that problem piece, but then doing some customer discovery. When it comes to, exploring, even if you're doing research or taking on a research project, who's going to benefit from that research at the end? Like, how are you actually going to get it out into the world? I think sometimes we don't take that consideration. We build things and, we think they could be interesting, but we don't think early enough about how do we actually get it into people's hands that could use it in some level that creates impact. And that's really, I'd say the cornerstone of my job at the university is around impact. So one piece being entrepreneurship. We have our E at UBCO program, and I can talk a bit more. We've talked about startup sprint and e-discovery, but it's also engaging researchers with industry, with external organizations, again, to create that impact of the work that we do at the university. And a lot of that is through research. There's a lot of discovery. Sorry, the sensor light in this room tends to go off, so I apologize. But it's really kind of that impact piece and not being so focused internally at the university. And I know, especially as students, you can get really tied into the academic experience and, doing your studies, but how does that all kind of roll out? And so, there's internship opportunities, work integrated learning opportunities that you can take your skills and actually apply them out to industry. And that's really, again, I guess, kind of summarizing my role as innovation manager is I say it as taking things off campus, and where are we showing the impact outside of the walls of the university? And again, that's through entrepreneurship, it's commercializing technology, it's working with industry groups or innovation groups. And when I say industry, that's not just, for-profit corporations, it could be not-for-profits, it can be governments, municipalities. How do we take this wealth of knowledge and skill that we're developing at UBC Okanagan and get it out into the world, and give students those experiences and those real hands-on experiences? And so I guess maybe just to touch back on the E at UBCO to close that piece off is that's where we're trying to do some of that programming and give you the opportunities to get involved. So like I mentioned, we have our e-discovery program right now, which is evenings. We try to, limit too much of the in-person time because we know it's hard for scheduling, but also trying to build community, help you connect with other schools and faculties across UBCO. We operate centrally at the university in the Office of Research and Innovation. And so we're not specifically in School of Engineering or Faculty of Management. We're really here to bring everybody together. And I think that's the value of some of the initiatives that we run. And then for those who have maybe an idea that they've done some work on that they really want to pursue as a business, we also have our Mentor to Market program where we bring in mentors. And that's an area we really want to provide a lot more support around. There's other groups that do it maybe around academic advising or career advising. And we want to do it around, that entrepreneurship and innovation piece. So maybe I'll stop there. I just wanted to kind of give a bit of a high level of what my role is, and we're still figuring it out. It's a new position, and, we're always open to feedback and hearing from our community at UBCO on what kind of supports they're looking for.
So, Sandra, here's a question based on your experience, and you mentioned that your experience at UBCO is still, limited and young and just the budding of a brand new position that did not exist before you came. But if you can draw back from all the experience that you had in your previous positions, right? You worked at NATE, amongst other places, and you work with lots of students in different programs. What would you say is a common misconception or common misunderstanding in students about this idea of entrepreneurship or innovation?
I mean, I guess maybe on the entrepreneurship side, going back to maybe a comment I said, and I bring it up often because it often does need to be reiterated, is that a lot of times the concept of a business, I think the default understanding is that, well, you have to have like a product or a service. Like it's really focused on the solution. So as long as I have the thing, then I just have to go sell the thing. And, again, it could be a widget, it could be a product, it could be a service, and that you just got to go sell it. The problem is it's not quite that simple, because now you're pushing a solution out to a group and you're just assuming people are going to buy stuff, and you'll eventually find somebody who wants to buy it. But it's more about solving a problem for somebody, because you're always asking for a transaction to happen, right? Somebody's got to pay you in exchange for something. And it's not actually the product, it's what that product is doing for that person. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. And that's where, we talk about value proposition. So why am I better now with having that thing? So it's really about having a customer. I mean, there's millions of products out there. There's tons of research out there, and not a lot of it is actually a business. And that's because there's not enough people to buy it to actually sustain building a company. I mean, when you think about a company, there's usually a building involved, there's people involved, there's all these expenses involved in actually running a business. And I think people just don't even reflect on the businesses that they're aware of, or even the companies they may work with. If you have a summer job, when you think about those businesses, or where your parents work, you know, there's a lot of costs with actually running a business. And if you don't have somebody buying your value, then it doesn't function. So as a student, we really want to reiterate is find something worth solving, find a problem. And I mean, then I get some people like, well, my example over the weekend was, you know, luxury purse. Well, that's not solving a problem for somebody. Like, nobody needs that purse, but it is solving a desire. And when you start to think about, you know, human nature, there's something fulfilling about it. And in any good, viable business, and I asterisk that, because just because there's a business out there operating doesn't mean they're a good, viable business. They could very much be on their way to closing.
Mhm.
But it's knowing that you have you can give somebody value, and what they value that value at, essentially, or that impact, is the price they're willing to pay. And that has to be above the cost to deliver it to them. That's a business. And so I think really emphasizing you're solving a problem for somebody and you can deliver it. And that it's a process. It's not just as simple, you write a business plan and you go do it. I think a lot of people don't realize how iterative it is. And that you're going to have to put time in, and you have to learn, and you got to tweak it. And there's no right recipe. It's not just, I'm going to write a business plan, or I just need to do these exact steps and it's just going to work. It doesn't. And most businesses fail, and you have to be ready for that. And that doesn't mean stop. It means adjust. I don't know if that kind of went on a bit of a tangent, but I think that's the biggest thing, is from a business perspective, as a student, maybe wanting to pursue something and like thinking they want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't want to go get a job after school, that you have to really be thoughtful about the business that you're running. And frankly, I really encourage going to get a job. I mean, I'm not here to try and push students to abandon their studies and start a company, and you're just going to go, you know, to Silicon Valley and become a billionaire tech CEO. We're teaching you. Yeah, go ahead, Alana.
To be fair, there is a scholarship that does exactly that, right? The Peter Thiel.
Right. Yes. Well, and I think it can work, but again, it's because you're getting the support to figure those things out.
Yeah.
And you know, you
But
have
it's
to
not for
just be
everybody.
prepared to fail. Like, I mean, even if you get the scholarship, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to have a successful business and it's all going to work out. So,
Yeah.
you know, being aware that it really is a journey and a process. It's not really an end game. It's kind of your journey to get there, and giving you tools. So I actually have an accounting degree, so I'm quite risk adverse, and starting a business can be quite risky. And so my approach is always just mitigating risk. And the best way to do that is, before you spend a bunch of money on an idea, go find out that somebody actually wants it. Build something people want, right? And that's, you know, the Y Combinator methodology of build something people want first. But often we just build something we want to build, or we can build, and then try and work backwards. So that's part of it. And that's not to say you can't do research and you can't go tinker in the maker space and build cool things. Just don't try and say, like, shove that, well, now it's a business. Like, just understand putting those pieces together.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody in the audience have any question at this point, or thought or comment. I knew I should have brought my cricket
Oh,
sound
we got a
effect
mute
instead.
off. Kyle?
Hi. I'm just trying to turn video on here. I had yours on a minute ago and the audio was choppy, so I turned it off, but we'll see if it'll turn on.
Great.
Maybe.
And any questions? Like, what brings you here? I can talk about all kinds of things, whether it's even understanding intellectual property, or just innovation, or how to get a job in this space, or where do you go from here? What are some additional supports?
Yeah, so I graduated from there in 2016 from the electrical engineering program, and
Okay.
I've been working for a couple tech startups since then. Looks like my video is on now. Are you
You're
hearing me
good. Yeah.
okay? Okay,
We can
great.
see you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been working for tech startups for a while and just kind of prototyping my own products on the side with the hopes to sell them someday. And
Mhm.
I'm getting close to pulling the trigger on that and actually getting into that. And now I'm wondering mostly about the legalities. I'm afraid I'll get in trouble and lose my house. So I want to make sure that I have insurance and I'm paying my taxes and following regulations like I said and FCC certification, and wondering what kind of stuff I need to sell in other countries or if I should just sell here first, and just things like that. Just all the, I'm pretty comfortable with electronics, but just all the legalities.
Right.
I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah. I mean, I generally, for sure, the first thing I would say that helps to manage that risk from a legal perspective with a business is incorporating, because it separates you from the business. So having an incorporation, it creates a separate entity and the business runs under that entity. So it does safeguard you to some degree as a founder, although if you're the owner and you're the shareholder, you're accountable to that company. So it's not like a full, but if for whatever reason, and I don't know details of the business you're running, but if for whatever reason a customer were to sue you, they're suing the company, versus if you sold it directly, what would be called a sole proprietorship, which you can run a business as a sole proprietor and it all runs through your own personal taxes. It would put you directly at risk. So I do, before you ever go to a customer, making sure you are incorporated. And then legally to actually sell to customers, you have to be registered as a business to sell to customers. That gets into, there's some nuances with that. So if you're a BC incorporation, you should be registered in BC to sell, but it doesn't mean you can't sell to other people and that you have to register in every region, unless you're actually operating in those spaces. And, there are resources to help with that. And I won't go too far down that road, but just being mindful of that piece of it. And then as soon as you do incorporate, again, like I said, it creates a separate entity. So now you have to do taxes for that entity, of course, your organization, but it keeps it out of your personal taxes, which gives you a lot of benefit as an organization, especially early on, of where expenses and things can go, without getting into too much specifics about that. And then of course there is business insurance. Again, depending on the nature of your industry, you do have to be mindful of regulations, of course. So, anything that is healthcare, life sciences to do with people, there's Health Canada regulations that you'd have to be aware of way up front. Food, of course, there's a lot of food regulations if you're looking to sell food. So really understanding the sector you're in and making sure there's not regulations. Now, in terms of the support for that, there are groups like Small Business BC has a ton of great resources. So, in terms of just a place to start, I would really encourage going there, of how to incorporate a company. And there's a lot of other great resources that can support with that too. But Small Business BC would be a good place to just kind of help you, give you some tips to start to look into that. They also used to do, I haven't looked at their website for a little while, but where you could actually sign up to talk to a lawyer, and it was like $40 to talk to a lawyer, just have an initial conversation to get some of that specific guidance. Because otherwise, as you can imagine, at some point you probably would have a lawyer that you work with on your company, but it can get pretty expensive to just have some of these inquiry conversations of just not even knowing where to start. So, but those are some resources that can really help you get access to that expertise before you really get going. Even groups like Chambers of Commerce, Futurepreneur, if you're really looking to get going, Yeah, I would say start with small business. I could get into all kinds of things, but I want to be mindful of other people on the call. The other thing you'd want to just kind of consider, depending, what area you're in, would be intellectual property. What a lot of people don't realize is, if you do have something that you can secure, if you don't get that process in place before you start selling it to customers, it's considered to be communicated out, and you actually can lose the opportunity to patent something if need be. I mean, it typically is more so with gadgets and widgets. Software doesn't typically get patented, but it could be copywritten. You want to explore that. And there's a lot of IP resources available to you. I would flag, if you're developing anything as a student in the institution, make sure you understand the IP policy. I think people assume everything's theirs. It's not. UBCO faculty that, create something with research, even if it's not on campus on their research time, because they are UBCO faculty, IP belongs to the university. So you always want to make sure you have freedom to operate, or that you're not infringing on somebody else's intellectual property without knowing about it. So, if you are building a gadget, especially with a lot of engineers, you might not realize it, but something you're doing could be patented, and you have to do patent searches to make sure you're actually clear to operate. You can do that through, there is Google Patent, believe it or well, maybe we're not surprised, but there is Google Patent that you can do some quick searches just to kind of get a sense if somebody's looking or has somebody already secured. Because a lot of things are patented and not out in the world. So even if you Google something, you're like, well, this product doesn't exist, someone could still have it patented, and they're just watching for somebody, to basically infringe on their patent, and they'll just sue you. And that's they're patent trolls. They're just waiting for somebody to infringe on there. So just little things to be mindful of. But there is the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, CIPO. They've got a lot of great toolkits and resources online about how to even know if you have IP, what are the different kinds of IP. So I would really encourage anybody, working even on research, to look and see, what those resources could be, if there's opportunities. So that would be kind of on the other legal side.
And I'll kind of jump in and say, we had Derek, who's the manager for the university industry liaison office. He came to the technology entrepreneurship course I'm teaching right now. And one of the things that we discussed in class, which is, I think, becoming more common and maybe not well thought of, is what happens when you need somebody to write you a piece of code and you subcontract it to someone else. And so even in that night, what may look like simple transactional, I pay you, you write code, I get it back, there is intellectual property for the person who created the code. And you need to make sure that the service contract that you signed with that person who wrote the code is transferring the IP to you as the person who paid for the service. Because if your service contract with that coder, the programmer, is not well protecting your ownership, that may come and bite you later on. So even writing code, the language has to be in the contract that the IP is transferred to you as the one paying for the code.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And this meeting in general, it's great. And funny coincidence, I'm negotiating one of those contracts right now, as I have a little contract on the side coming up. And it's about 8 pages of lawyer speak. So it's a lot of fun to make sure all the IP stuff is sorted, and liability protection and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I've got some new places to do some research, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And as an alumni, I mean, if you're interested in any of our programs, like I said, right now we have our e-discovery, which is really kind of walking through the lean startup. do you understand the problem you're solving? Is there actually a problem? Do you know who your customer is? How are you going to sell to them? We get into the business model, how to do customer discovery, how to do customer development on really, again, figuring out which group, where do you want to start? Where's kind of the low hanging fruit, we like to say, of just getting that first customer, getting, the first transaction, getting to revenue. And just provide some resources on that. And that's in person and online that we run that. And then we also have our mentor to market that just closed about a week ago, but for teams that actually have gone through some of that validation already and are, on the road to, okay, I think I have something here and I actually want to pursue this as a business. We match teams with 2 mentors to just connect with it kind of on a bi-weekly basis to walk you through some of the goals over the next couple months and just give you that guidance. I mean, we have lawyers, we have bankers, we have entrepreneurs, we have all kinds of different sectors, and looking to build that out. So again, these are free resources that we offer through the university. They're outside of the school and the faculty academic environment. So you don't get credit necessarily. I mean, unless some of your profs will give you credit for participating in some of these, but it's really as an add-on because we see the value, of course, of the impact that can be done by supporting, new venture creation and startups. And of course, especially if there's anything operating in the Okanagan and keeping things here and helping those businesses grow. So yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I shared our email, which is innovation.ok@ubc.ca, and that kind of taps to our entrepreneurship team as well and connects to me. And I can share our website. I did share the link for eDiscovery for all of you. I put it in the chat if you want to check out that program. That's open right now. Spots are limited based on space that we have. So it's first come, first serve, assuming you're eligible for the program. And yeah, we do a lot of events. So I can also share, we have, we're not doing an active newsletter yet, but we have a distribution list that, any of our programs that launch, it goes to that list first. So I'll send the link for that too, if any of you just want to get notified of stuff that we have on the go. So Charlotte was asking that their team had a design competition. So I had just stated that that's exactly what the eDiscovery program is for. Is, you kind of have something, maybe it's come out of even like a capstone project or a research or a design group. We have a lot of clubs that actually end up coming through to us where they've taken on a project and want to see, could it be a business? Is it something we want to pursue? And that's really what our eDiscovery program will do. So registration's open right now, and then it kicks off February 16th, and it's Thursday evenings, 5:30 to 8:30. It's not usually the whole time. We feed you. That's always a bonus. So we feed you. It's in the evening. And it's every second Thursday starting February 16th. And then in between, we have some online content that'll walk you through little snippets of, again, how to start a business, how to think about it, how to test it, some of the tools that you need to move through it. So yeah, that's available. So I would say to you, Charlotte, that would be the best resource for that. I don't know if anybody else, Anson or Anika, if anything you want to maybe specifically talk about.
Not yet. Okay. So let me ask you, when I think we had this discussion a while ago on more of a definition level type of question. How do you define innovation? What do you count as innovation? I've had this discussion with lots of people, and I know
it's a loaded question. Yeah, I mean, I really just see it as, new ways of thinking and doing. I think a lot of people think of innovation like it has to be like research or patentable. But, innovation is just thinking outside the box. So, research, of course, does fall into that. In a way, and maybe I would add, because, I think just speaking to what I think my role is, that, it's a new way of doing things that creates some kind of impact. Because otherwise, research is research, and there's a lot of research that happens. But, is it getting out the door? And that's where at least I think UBCO seems to position innovation as, taking these things and getting it out in the world. And again, it doesn't have to be completely net new. Nobody's ever thought about it. It can be incremental. Like, we think about even as simple as social media platforms. Facebook wasn't the first one. There was Friendster, there was MySpace, then it was Facebook, and then Instagram. I mean, there's still some innovation in that. There's innovation in thinking, there's innovation in the business model, there's innovation in the deployment, where it's a new way of doing things. It might not be, again, significant, but it's out there, and it's made an impact, and it's made a change on an industry or a sector. So that's really where I would see innovation, is thinking outside the box, out of the normal way of doing things, and that it can actually create some impact, or it's going to create some change in the world. So it has to actually get out there for it to really kind of start to be innovative, because you've proved that it can be done.
So I'm going to be picky on the word, because we went back and forth from future tense to past tense.
Yep.
So is innovation that, does it make it innovation because it can create impact, or is it an innovation because it has created impact?
I'd say, and this is why I think it has been fluid, and I don't know, anyone that has a nailed down definition. I should actually look it up one of these days. What is the definition of innovation in a dictionary somewhere? But
you don't want to look.
Yeah. And, I'm going to come back and say, I think it's both, because if it can, there's still the opportunity that it will. It's when it doesn't that maybe it's less innovative, but at the same time, the success of innovation is really left to people. And the challenge is, like, there can be a really great idea, but if you're not willing to do what it takes to get it to impact, it can fail. So I think it could still be innovative, even if it doesn't get to the real world. But if the right people aren't the ones driving it, then it doesn't happen. So I don't think it means it's not innovative. So I think if it is impactful or could be impactful, it's still innovation. But then the challenge gets to be who's actually making it happen. And sometimes it's just the wrong people, or the wrong skill set, or the wrong time. Things can be, awesome technology and awesome innovation. It's just the wrong time. People aren't ready for it. It can't be adopted, or it's cost prohibitive. I mean, we see that with a lot of tech, is that, so here's a good example. When I was at the University of Alberta, there was a group doing lab grown meats, right? I mean, it's, food production and cattle causes environmental issues, and, access to food. There's all kinds of reasons why there's problems. And so, they were able to create a chicken nugget in the lab, but it was $600. Well, that's interesting. And, there's innovation there, but you can't sell it. Nobody's going to buy $600, a $600 nugget. But what happened out of that is that they actually were like, well, why is it so expensive to build this? And how do we bring the cost down? Why is it so expensive? And so to me, that was like that journey for them around innovation and really deep technology, but the timing really wasn't right. So, and I guess I feel like I'm probably even contradicting myself too. It was innovative in their well, maybe it wasn't. I mean, people were building lab grown meats, right? Maybe the first person that did it was like, this was innovative, but we can't do anything with it. So maybe it's just research at that point. And then it was, well, now they're being innovative on how to get this to market, so we could have chicken nuggets in the future. It's a tough struggle, honestly, because research gets lumped in. I think my opinion, this is my opinion, research is innovative, but innovation doesn't have to be fully research. Right.
Okay. So it's like it's a necessary ingredient, but it's not sorry, the other way around. It's like a group theory, right? So it's like all research is by definition innovative, but not all innovations come from academic research.
Right, because you can have an innovative business model where you've just changed how you're delivering something. So a business model can be innovation, but maybe, it doesn't mean it's driven by university research.
Yeah, like which one? I think it was FedEx. I think FedEx was the first overnight shipping company that kind of revolutionized the whole courier business. I noticed there was a question in the chat before by Anson asking, what's the typical fees to start or register a company? I'll let you answer. I'll just say that usually the only thing typical in startups is there's nothing typical.
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's a base cost. So there's the actual, just like you go into a registry and you create a company. So that's where it's usually done, is a registry. I believe here it would still be ICBC. I mean, you can incorporate a company online. So for instance, I started a company in 2017 because I was doing, some program development, some consulting, some contracting, some various things. And I wanted to incorporate just to keep it out of my personal finance. And again, you can talk to accountants at some point of why the pros and cons of that. But anyways, I wanted to incorporate a company. I mean, it's in the hundreds of dollars. It's not overly expensive. I would say it's more the actually having the business and just keeping it active, I guess would be the best word. So you can incorporate online, you can incorporate at a registry. I think it was a few $100s. And you normally get a named company. So it'll be, or a numbered company, the number BC Incorporation. If you want a name, then you have to do a name search, and it's called the Nuance, NUANS, and actually get it named. So my company is actually Nimble Strategizing Inc. because I incorporated it as that, but you have to do a name search to ensure nobody else has that name legally, because you're creating a legal entity. It's as if it's a person without it actually being a person. So you have to do that. Otherwise, a lot of people just use their numbered company and then they're operating as something else. To register, again, it's, not a lot. Now you're incorporating, you go register, and now you can do business. There's some groups, and I'll share some website. Again, Small Business BC should have some details on actually how to do this. There's Owner, which helps make it simple and does it all for you. What I ended up doing is I have a lawyer that I work with, because they do, when you're incorporated, every year you have to do a meeting basically to say, you're still operating, and it's called a minute book. So I have a lawyer that does it for me, and every year she just gives me, hey, has anything changed with the business? I fill out a form, and because it was only ever me, nothing really changes. And so it costs me just to keep that going with a lawyer. It's about $1,000 a year. And then they renew my registration every year, and they just do it. So I don't have to worry about it. But then you have to do your taxes every year. So once you create that entity, you have to do your taxes every year for that entity. So again, I have an accountant. I keep all my receipts. I don't have a lot going on, but these are the things people don't think about. So, you have to stay on top of that stuff and pay your taxes potentially. As a startup, you're not usually making a lot of money, or you're actually in the minuses because you're spending to grow. So you don't run into too much there, but you still have to do that work. So keeping that in mind, you probably want an accountant and a lawyer. And just to keep it going, if you were just one person doing kind of a consulting company, might cost you $1,500, $2,000 a year just to keep that going. And then, once you start collecting money from people, you have to collect GST, and then you got to pay that back to the government. So keeping those things in mind. So you get a GST number and operate there. So this one group, Owner, I'll post it in there. They kind of help you do all those pieces for you once you're setting up. I encourage you not to do this until you're actually ready to have a business. Like, you should be going to find out if this is even a viable business before you do this work. Because otherwise you're paying for something that is not necessary. It's really not until you're accessing grants. So if you're getting grant money from most groups, they're going to want to know that you're actually incorporated before they'll give you money. So that's tends to be the driver for a lot of startups. If you're in kind of the technology space, is that, okay, I want to go start applying for grants, you need to be incorporated. Other than that, until you're ready to actually take money from a customer, you can delay that process.
Yeah, and it really kind of brings back the question, or challenge you to answer the question, why are you incorporating?
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of going by default, oh, I'm starting a company, let's incorporate. Like, okay.
Well, and because it's the fun part, right? Like, it feels real. It's like, have incorporated, and you're gonna, spend a lot of time on your name and your logo, because that's the fun
business
stuff.
cards,
Business cards, maybe some t-shirts. You're gonna be the
buy
CEO
a
of
domain name.
XYZ company, but your best bet is to actually dig in to see if you can really do this or not. And I mean, there's other ways of starting a business. I think we tend to talk more on the startup side and maybe the technical side, something kind of new, but there is consulting companies, but you still have to know. When I started my company, I thought I was going to do certain kind of work, and I ended up getting contracted to do something else. And I mean, the only reason I was able to do that is because I had a really strong network. I went to a lot of events for a lot of years and was able to just, people saw the value in what I could bring. But I thought I was going to be building programs for universities based on the stuff that I'd built. And I ended up, delivering programs for for-profit groups, actually, which was great because, they were making money and helping them. And then I was doing, direct consulting. So it really evolved. And I probably should have did a little bit more of that work up front to know, well, how am I actually going to spend my time, and what is the kind of work that I'm going to be doing? But even if you're doing like a franchise, yes, they give you a business out of a box, and people think, well, if I just sign up, it's just all going to work. It doesn't. I mean, you're getting usually a specific location. Well, what do you know about that location? I mean, a franchise, objective is to sell you the franchise, and then they're going to give you crap if you don't make money on it. But if it's a bad location, if the market that's there doesn't actually want what you have to offer, I mean, if you got a Tim Hortons in the middle of nowhere, well, that's not going to be good relative to the Tim Hortons that's on a busy route. And yet they're all over the place. So if you're not assessing that yourself up front, you could be setting yourself up for failure. And so it's doing that due diligence and mitigating that risk. Which is why, again, it's the same process for anything you do. Is why is this business going to work? Who's going to pay for what I'm offering? And can I do it at scale? And can I do it in an affordable way that it's not costing me more than the money I'm bringing in? Because cash flow kills most businesses. It's the fact that you're spending too much to deliver that solution, and people either aren't paying for it or paying it for it in the numbers that you thought or as fast as you thought. And then you get totally hooped, and, businesses just go bankrupt. So you want to anticipate that before you even get going. And Dragon's Den's a great example of that. I mean, I use it all the time. People just think like, I remember there was one, and they redesigned a toilet seat. Again, to them, it was new and people were going to like it. I think they put like $2 million into it. And basically the Dragons told them, like, stop putting money into this. But you get so desperate because you start putting money in. They never talk to customers. They didn't try selling anything before. So they spent all this money behind. They build the product, and then you go to market and you're just like, hey, I got this. And then it's like, no one wants it. And that's devastating. And that's why we do lean startup. And that's why we walk through these workshops to teach you how to test that so that doesn't happen, because it's heartbreaking and people lose their houses. People lose a lot pursuing an idea.
And I think, I'm mindful of the time. It's cutting short to our last few minutes. And I think the hardest challenge, and this is why I like to have these Germinator sessions. I think for the most part, and I talk to lots of students and staff and faculty, people don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the value that having you here today, and I'm so grateful that you made the time to join us today, and having all the other entrepreneurs and innovators that I bring in every 2 weeks, is really just to trigger the right questions for people so
Yeah.
they can ask them before they go down a steep hill they realize
Recover from.
yeah, it was
Absolutely.
painful and long and too deep, and now ouch.
And I challenge you to think about it. Like, I think people like, oh, I don't know anything about startup. I don't know anything about these things. It's like, our world is created around businesses. Everything you buy is a business. So start thinking about that. Well, okay, I'm the customer. What am I paying? Well, what do I think it costs them to deliver this to me? And just it's every day. And, the more I got involved with Lean Startup, I mean, I use it all the time. Like, even when I'm building programs or anything I'm doing, what problem am I solving? Or like, why am I doing this? That's really what it comes down to. And you're just de-risking. Like, well, why would I waste my time and money doing this? It's decision making. And, a good business is a problem solving. It's problem solving, and not every solution is going to solve the problem, and not every problem's worth solving. So it's kind of just starting to flex the muscles a little bit and thinking about it. And any job you have, this all exists. Every business you work for, they're solving a problem for somebody. Do you know what the problem is? Do you know who the customer is? And do you know how you fit in that value chain of getting that out to the customer? Because even as one of you as engineers, you are contributing to that solution in some way. And so it's easy to get bogged down on the solution, but you're not there because of the solution. You're there because you're solving a problem for somebody. And so, as students, I challenge you to just think about that in your day-to-day, or anytime you make a purchase. It's like, why am I buying this? Like, what is it solving for me? And it might not be obvious right away, but it's a problem or it's a desire. I mean, go to the grocery store, you're buying food because you need food to live, right? Now, how did you decide where you went for that is where the business model changes. If you can afford it, you're doing skip the dishes. It's a convenience. They're giving you convenience of bringing food to your house versus, so, you can really start to see how these things actually translate into business models.
Sandra, it's 1:00. I have to let
Yes.
you go, and we
Excellent.
have many other conversations to have offline as well as online.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
so thank you. Yeah, thank you again, and I appreciate you put down all the links, especially for the e-discovery, and I absolutely encourage all the students, if you're thinking about learning more about entrepreneurship, I teach a course, it's fourth year engineering and grad level engineering, but if you don't have to take a course, you can just go to e-discovery, and it's not a course, it's as informative, as instructive, and has lots of cool people, including Sandra, in place. So there are lots of ways and places to learn. So go out and ask the questions.
Yes. Hope to see you all in person at some point.
Okay, well, have a great rest of the day, and we will meet each other again soon.
Great. Thanks, Alon. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you all, even virtually.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.